The competence-based curriculum has been hit with a number of difficulties since it was rolled out. The curriculum was rolled out in January, targeting pre-primary grades 1, 2 and 3 learners. The new 2633 system is replacing the 844, which has been discredited for being too examination-centered.
While the Ministry of Education maintains that it has handled the teething problems, there are counties like Kwale where poor infrastructure and insufficient staff are proving to be a bottleneck in the access of education for the young children. NTV's award-winning journalist Rose Wangoi takes us to the classrooms in Kinango constituency, Kilifi County, where undeterred children pursue an education amidst crushing deficiencies. And is it Kilifi or Kwale?
This is in Kwale.
Grass-thatched roofs which are feebly supported by worn-out mud walls intertwine between cracks and holes. Tumaini Primary School stands tall. The school's nearly non-existent infrastructure paints the grim reality that is the pursuit of education in Kinango constituency, Kwale County. Perhaps pupils and teachers in this particular institution often pray it does not rain during the day or the strong wind may have mercy on them when the skies open.
Kukinyesha, ukweli ni kwamba watoto wote wanatoka kule ambako waliko kwenye madarasa, wanakuja kwenye ile structure ambayo iko na bati. Wote, hakuna masomo ambayo yanasomeka.
The classes are ever dusty and a desk is shared by up to 5 learners. The school, which was registered in 2007, does not have a permanent structure. Its survival now is by the mercy of few well-wishers.
Makuti wale wanarekebisha ni mchango tu wa wazazi ndio ambao unasaidia hii hali. Lakini kama si hivyo kungekuwa na hali nyingine ambayo sio.
The institution, whose student population is 236, currently needs at least 6 classrooms to accommodate the pupils who learn in mud-wall structures and under trees. There is no administration block. The head teacher and his staff have to use a mud-walled structure to keep important records and prepare their lessons. The Ministry of Education rolled out the competency-based curriculum after a 1-year nationwide experimentation. It targeted pre-primary, grades 1, 2 and 3 learners. The question of infrastructure development in schools, especially in rural areas, is one that cannot be wished away. Under a thorny tree that barely keeps away the scorching sun, a group of children aged 5 and 6 years sit on the dusty ground.
Hello, hello. Hi, hi, hi.
With little success, the teacher struggles to regain full attention of the easily distracted classes and rushes through the lesson.
Yes, very good. Sheep.
Lower classes are conducted under trees. This comes with insurmountable challenges. The pupils miss out on the quality of education that they ought to receive because they do not concentrate. The head teacher says, despite filing complaints with the county government, no help of any form has come their way.
Mambo ya ECD tumeenda kwa public participation kila mara, lakini hakuna siku hata moja tumefaidika. Twashangaa kwa sababu kwamba upande mwingine kunafanyiwa, huku kwetu kunakuwa na shida. Watoto 80 wa ECD wako hapa na wako nje mpaka saa hii. Hawana choo chao, maana kile ambacho kiko chatumika na wale watu wakubwa.
Number 5. Rice.
Sisi kama tungepata facilities za kutosha, tuamini kwamba hawa watoto wangefanya vizuri zaidi.
Mfumo umeingizwa lakini vitabu hatujapata.
The situation is replicated at AIC Ngangani Primary School. The classrooms are in a deplorable state, many of them destroyed by heavy rains. Most of the classrooms, poorly constructed with mud walls, are so frail, they're literally shaking. When it rains, the roads become impassable, the classrooms leaky, and many people simply stay away for the duration of the rains. The school, which was started in 2005, does not have a toilet. The pupils and teachers are forced to relieve themselves in the bushes.
The place is rocky. Parents tried to dig some pits, but then they are filled. In fact, I'm worried if a public health officer comes in here. I'm afraid the school may be closed. Even when I came, I was also shown some bush where teachers always go. And I'm not comfortable with that one.
The school has 4 permanent classrooms constructed by the Constituency Development Fund. These are preserved for the lower classes. The upper classes have to make do with mud wall structures. The worn-out walls make teaching a difficult task due to noise from both ends of the classroom. This, according to teachers, affects teaching and learning as children lose focus. The blackboards are battered. As learning continues, unlikely visitors can be seen roaming within the classrooms. The head teacher says that the allocation from the government is not enough to do maintenance work on the mud-walled classrooms.
What we received in first term, it was around 37,000. That's peanuts. It's like a drop in the ocean. So you can tell me, what can you do with that money? We need to take care of our property. So that's the watchman who should be paid not less than 4,000. We pay him 4,000 shillings.
And with the introduction of the competency-based new curriculum, the school faces another challenge. Only 3 of its teachers have been trained for this new system of teaching.
There are 3 classes that remain without a teacher at any given period. So really we have a problem. Performance is not good.
First of all, we have to study that map.
The major challenges are just the textbooks that we are not getting them, especially when it comes to giving work to the learners. You see, the way they have been designed, it's like every pupil should have a book. So if they are not there, then it becomes oral. It is not practical. Those books that they have are for the mathematics activity, language activity, but those others are not there. They are yet to be delivered. If resources shall be made available, this curriculum is the best because it is actually focusing on the holistic development of that child. One could be good at a certain area. Again, ukiangalia the present one, it is just purely academic.
7 years after the pre-primary schooling was devolved, Ngangani is yet to get a permanent structure. Young pupils continue to learn in deplorable conditions as their teachers work under the mercy of parents for pay. The classroom lacks basic learning materials such as desks, chairs and blackboards.
After the devolution, that was 2013, no teacher has been sent here by the county government. The pre-primary teacher is here. Is paid by the community. In a month, you can give her maybe 1,000, 2,000, anangojea, lakini anavumilia.
Magodzoni Primary School sits in perhaps a worst state. The school is in a dilapidated state, exposing the hardship learners and teachers are subjected to at least 8 hours a day. The pupils learn in classes that have developed huge cracks such that one cannot differentiate between a door and a window. Entrance is through any opening in the classrooms. The school does not have chairs or desks and pupils are forced to sit on makeshift pieces of timber supported by 2 stones which acts as chairs. When it rains, water leaks through the holes in the roof and the children's books get wet, and when it's windy, it penetrates through the cracks. The school, which has a population of 260 pupils, has only 2 permanent structures, which are allocated to the lower classes. Grade 1, 2 and 3 are forced to sit on bare floors while attending their classes for lack of desks.
The sounds are
The class also acts as a storeroom.
What is the sound?
The worst nightmare for the young learners is during continuous assessment tests and end-term exams. Due to lack of enough classrooms, pupils are scattered all over the school compound. But it doesn't end there. According to the head teacher, a shortage of teachers has drastically affected the implementation of the new curriculum at her school. Out of 8 TSC teachers, only 3 have undergone training on the new curriculum.
Huu mfumo mpya wa elimu, mwalimu anatakikana aangalie mambo mengi kulingana na mtoto. Skills. Kwa hiyo kazi imekuwa ni kubwa sana, mbinu zimebadilika. Kwa hiyo sasa kuna terms ambazo walimu hata sasa zinawasumbua kidogo. Vitabu vya darasa la 3 vya CBC ni ngumu kupatikana.
The word is met. What are the sounds?
Mwalimu anapofunza inabidi arudie vile vitabu vya zamani vya tusome ambayo ni old curriculum. Ndio arudi sasa awafunze watoto, ambapo inakuwa ni changamoto sana kwake.
This structure is a classroom for the pre-primary who attend school here. In their quest for education, it was built by the parents for the young learners, but the conditions here are threatening the very foundation they hope to build. The situation isn't any better at Bomani Primary School. Its dilapidated classrooms are quenching the thirst for education for more than 200 pupils. The school has only 2 permanent classrooms, forcing pupils to study in mud-walled structures.
The statement is negative, so it requires...
The school is in such disrepair that at any moment the classrooms they're taught in could collapse. The mud walls of some of the classes have fallen off.
So we have said we use
The teachers are ready to deliver, but in very poor structures from class 1 to standard 8. There are only 20 D6. That the ones we are dealing with them.
This is a unique learning environment. Class 4 and 5 share a classroom. The pupils have a rough time concentrating as the 2 teachers appear to be competing who is the loudest. When one classes face one direction, the other faces the opposite direction.
What do you call them?
Pit latrines are almost caving in, forcing teachers and pupils to use nearby bushes and thickets to respond to nature calls. Established 15 years ago, the school has 8 teachers, but only 2 understand the new curriculum.
Let us remind ourselves, what is the question tag?
Each have 52 lessons per week. That is the truth of the matter. Because at first we had taken those 2 to cater for standard 1, standard 2, and standard 3. But we saw there's a challenge because if one goes to the standard 1 and standard 2, class 3 remains without a teacher. We are just teachers of the old era. We are using the old methods to cope with them. Where we cannot afford using the old methods, we tell those who are inducted to deal with them. Such that even if the teacher is absent today, maybe because there is a human being, might fall sick anytime. So when he's absent, a teacher might go there to teach, but not teach the CBC.
Pre-primary children are facing a rocky start in their quest for education. Pre-primary level 1 and 2 are crammed in a single mud-walled structure. They sit on the bare ground and write on their palms and knees. The gaping holes in the classrooms have been covered by manila charts, cartons and sacks to protect the young learners from wind and dust. The pupils are taught by an untrained teacher. She handles 4 classes from preschool to grade 3.
I don't think he has the right skills to teach the CBC. What we know that she got a C+ in Form 4, and since we see her delivering because just a matter of reading the material and delivering to the pupils. We don't know whether whatever she's doing is the right thing as per the CBC or not. We don't know.
Saturday and Sunday.
And any time she decides to go because of maybe the underpayment, still we shall have that problem.
At Mbwaleni Primary School, there are 121 pupils in PP1 and PP2. There is so little space that the teacher can barely fit in the gap between pupils' knees in the front row and the chalkboard. The pupils sit on the floor and place books on their laps when they are writing. They have no desks.
In 2012, the county council came up with a building which did not complete. And because of that, we have been forced to converge the children in the classrooms which are already collapsing. We have made some calls for the county government. They have promised to come and build an ECD. At first we had high hopes, but now it is almost 5 years since they promised, and we have not seen it being fulfilled.
The school, which has a population of 421 pupils, but the classroom space cannot fit the growing numbers. It operates with only 6 TSC teachers. Most of the classrooms are built using homemade low-quality bricks. The roof is made of iron sheets that rattle on a windy afternoon. In some classes, the roof has partially caved in and sags dangerously. There are only 3 permanent structures occupied by the upper classes.
It's only class 8 and class 7 which at least has some desks for children to sit. From class 1 to class 6, there are no desks for children to sit.
Although the teachers are backing the implementation of the competency-based curriculum, they are of the opinion that the system has added more work. The curriculum covers the following learning areas. In PP1 and PP2, the subjects include languages, mathematics, environmental activities, psychomotor and cognitive activities, and religious education. In grades 1, 2, and 3, the list contained titles in the following areas: Kiswahili literacy, English, mathematics, environmental activities, hygiene and nutrition, Christian, Hindu, and Islamic religious education, movement, and creative activities. Ideally, for CBC to be effective, there should be at least 20 learners per class. But here in Kinango, that is not applicable, since most of the schools have only 1 teacher handling an average of 50 pupils or more.
We had teachers who were trained for only a day, and the teachers were trained for 3 days. We have had some challenges. The enrollment of class 1 is around 80 children. The enrollment of class 2 is 75, and the enrollment of class 3 is 63. Because of the scarcity of teachers, the class 1 teacher is forced to handle all the subjects, and so does the class 2 and class 3 teacher. So there is too much workload.
Consequently, the teachers have failed to use learner-centered interactive teaching methods as the CBC demands.
When we heard about the CBC, we thought that maybe it would be like the 844 system, which the teachers were taking for 2 years for proper training. But with a 2-day training, I don't think whether it is fit for teachers to be well equipped for the CBC. Actually, we have been marveled. We have got very little knowledge. When we go to class, we don't have the courage. CBC inataka mafunzo mengi yawe yako kidigital. Na sasa sisi hata moto wenyewe huku shuleni hatu. So kweli unaona tunaweza tukawasaidia watoto.
We are not opposing the new curriculum, but I think we are not yet ready to implement it fully, because some of us are lacking that information about the CBC.
Ngaura Primary School was damaged by heavy rains, and now parents have come together to repair the mud-wall classrooms. According to the head teacher, the school has never received financial assistance to give it a facelift since it was built. For years, a severe shortage of classrooms and school furniture meant they studied in discomfort on dirty floors. Najua Bunda tries her best to instill as much of the knowledge as possible in the best way she knows.
4, 5.
Looking into the eyes of the children squatted on the ground before her, one notices a yearning for something more and better.
Kuna hiyo PP1 na PP2 wote wako pamoja, na kama hiyo CBC vile iko, naona inanikoroga sana watoto wakiwa mahali pamoja. Kama vile inatakikana kama wewe kila grade iko na mahali kwake. Kitu kigeni kimekuja sasa, inataka uzoefu na mafunzo kwa uzuri. Na sisi tumefunzwa kwa siku moja na field officers. Twaitwa tu hivi mara moja, tunapigiwa tu kutokea mwanzo mpaka mwisho. Ukitoka pale kamba umekorogeka. Kazi nyingi unaelezwa hapa, unaelezwa pale, mara unakuwa kamba umechanganyikiwa.
1, 2.
Mimi naona mfumo mpya ni mzuri kwa sababu unamlenga yule mtoto na urahisi wake unamuonyesha kile kitu practical. Kwa sababu ukimwambia hii ni 1, unamuonyesha hasa 1 ina value ya vipi, manake ni nini 1.
After enduring a long and hard journey to get to school, the pupils at Chizaya Primary School still do not get any comfort while learning. This is because the school has inadequate classrooms. Preschool have a permanent structure which was constructed by the county government, while grade 1 and 2 occupy these 2 classrooms which were constructed by the CDF in 2016 at a cost of 2 million shillings. But the floor is already worn out. Teachers here claim the contractor did a shoddy job. There is no furniture and the young learners place books on their laps when they are writing. The school runs on the fuel of 3 teachers employed by the Teachers Service Commission who are serving over 200 pupils. Grade 3 lessons are conducted under a tree, with the young learners crowded into the available shade, peering at a battered blackboard that is leaning against the tree and straining to follow what the teacher, who can barely keep the board up, is saying. Josephine Umazi handles grade 1, 2 and 3. She handles 2 classes at the same time. While she's busy teaching grade 3, class 5 are also waiting for her services.
Hamjambo. Ketin.
Having 3 teachers who understand the CBC is a burden, because you have to deal with all the classes from morning to the evening. It's a bit tiresome because you have to deal with the grade 1, 2 and 3, and again you have 4, 5, 6 and 7 and 8. Then they also need work to do. We have to group class 4 and 5, we combine them. Class 6 and 7, we combine them in one room. And then class 1 and 2, we have to group them in one class, so that at least in every class there's a teacher.
Tunaulizwa ngao alikuwa mgonjwa wakati gani? Turudi kwenye
per day, you find a teacher having zaidi ya vipindi 10 kwa siku moja.
Zainabu alipata.
The deplorable learning situation at this school is not only extremely unfavorable for the pupils, but also something the teachers too have to bear with, as they share a small mud-wall staff room. Kinango constituency has 164 public primary schools. Out of these, 72 are in a deplorable state. This is despite the constituency receiving the lion's share of the Constituency Development Fund CDF cash in 2013 with an allocation of 171 million shillings. According to records seen by NTV, between 2013 and 2017, the constituency received over 800 million shillings. Area Member of Parliament Benjamin Dalu Tayari has acknowledged that the infrastructure of public schools in his constituency is not desirable, but he says he's not to blame for this state of affairs.
I feel I would have done a lot with the 170 million to improve the infrastructure of the schools. So there have been so many question marks on how the CDF funds is being utilized. And I just want to remove, in my leadership, I want to remove that fear that there is misuse of CDF funds. Mimi nilipoingia nilipata shule nyingi zimejengwa kupitia CDF, lakini hata ukiangalia ile hali zile viko, si hali ya kusema kwamba hii pesa serikali imetumika vizuri. Na hapo ndio nimebadilisha msingi, nimeweka msingi mpya, tuko na kamati mpya ambayo inasimamia vizuri.
The last time for CDF to construct a building here was in 2012, where they put up that structure there and it was not complete and they went. Wakati mwingine CDF zinajenga mahali hata ambapo kuna majengo ya kutosha, ndio wanapeleka majengo hapo. Hasa hizi shule za huku ndani ni kama zimebaguliwa sana.
Every village now, the family members and the village elders, they all want to set up primary schools, saying that the children have to walk to far distances to get education. And this is the one which is creating problems. So I've really stopped this habit of starting primary schools so that we can really embark on proper structures for our people. We are supposed to receive equalization funds from Treasury, but this one also has delayed. We've not received that money, whereas I had said if we receive the 200 million, I was going to allocate around 100 million only on education. This one was really going to help us a lot. If you combine the 100 million plus the 40 million from CDF, would be having 140 million per year. This one would really give us a big achievement in regard to the education. What we get from the ministry is peanuts, from the infrastructure fund. You can imagine a constituency like Kinango, which is in dire need, was allocated only 500,000 Kenya shillings to one primary school. Since I came in, I've in total built around 45 classrooms. And this financial year, I'm trying to build around 60.
Education function remains under the national government. The only aspect of this have been devolved a pre-primary education. Kwale County government says it has constructed 370 ECD centers, but it has also acknowledged that the situation in some schools is bad.
Fine, we have accepted that. Yeah, you know, Rome was not built in a day. We've not actually addressed all the challenges, especially in infrastructure. But I want to tell you one thing. As a county government, we started from zero. We have got more than 800 ECD centers in Kwale County, which need to be furnished and be provided with the infrastructural support. This financial year, we are going to do 70 ECD centers.
The plight of these pupils once again highlights the infrastructural crisis that has continued to rock many Kenyan state schools following the introduction of free primary education 16 years ago.
Watermelon, watermelon,
But what worries the teachers most is the fact that after years of suffering, there seems to be no end in sight even with the rollout of the competency-based curriculum. Under the new education system, pupils are expected to complete 2 years of preschool, 6 years in primary school, and 3 years in junior secondary school. Learners are also expected to complete another 3 years in senior secondary school and another 3 years in university. According to the CEO of Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, Dr. Julius Swan, competency-based curriculum is good and focuses on the learner, as opposed to the 8-4-4 system, which is exam-oriented and favors highly cognitive learners.
When, even Form 4, when exams results come out, like now 2018, 441,000 had a D plus and below. 93 had a C plus and above. About 122 had C plain and C minus. So they will go to colleges and technical institutes. Nobody bothers about the 441,000, which is more than actually almost 3/4. We don't celebrate them. We have declared them failures. What happens to them? Then you go back. What is the purpose of education for a country? It's to socialize people to be productive members of that society. Now, if that socialization process already has excluded and condemned the 3/4 of the people who are coming out, what are we telling the country?
Unlike the current system of education, one says CBC will be more practical and will churn out graduates who will be self-reliant in the job market in the technical fields.
CBC is good for this country, and CBC should have been rolled out like yesteryears. Actually, in the US, in some of the states, CBC started in 1985. So you can calculate and see. Some of the things we're introducing in CBC, like entrepreneurial skills, business skills, are generic skills that somebody requires, so that even if you go outside there and you get money from the youth fund, you know what to do with it.
Meanwhile, Kenya National Union of Teachers have accused the Ministry of Education of using shortcuts to rush through the competency-based curriculum CBC, which will replace the 844 system.
The right things were not done. And this is a process that has been hijacked by foreigners. It is not being driven by Kenyans. This is a cut and paste curriculum which gives room for, it's a business model curriculum.
Curriculum is never a copy-paste thing. At least we don't have a foreigner driving this process. We have very good Kenyans dealing with this process. Is somebody saying that we have deliberately, with the support of the government, decided to destroy the future of this country? I mean, just think about it, because we are not going anywhere.
Any curriculum to qualify, to be rolled out, must go through a systematic scientific process, beginning with the evaluation of the existing curriculum and sharing of the findings with the public, the needs assessment, development of policy framework that involves many steps, including a task force in place made up of eminent experts in curriculum development, But in this situation, experts in curriculum development have been locked out. They're not part of the process. So we wonder which experts are midwifing this process, and bills getting to Parliament so that it receives the necessary statutory instruments and support from Parliament. So far, that was not done, and even Parliament is yet to debate this.
In March this year, NAT commissioned a study which revealed that there is a major deficit across the 47 counties of teachers with the necessary skills to implement the CBC in primary schools. The report revealed most schools in Kenya were not fully prepared to handle the 2633 curriculum.
Right now, we don't have a teacher training curriculum model for the teacher training colleges. That should have been item number 1 in 2015-2016, that by 2019, at the beginning of the rollout, teacher training colleges and universities should have been graduating competency-based curriculum-trained teachers. This has not been done.
Some of the issues cited by the union as hampering the success of the new curriculum include rushed implementation, shortage of teachers, poorly developed infrastructure, lack of support in monitoring books, and failure to involve the participation of private schools in the training.
The trainings that teachers have been given are not trainings at all, because those who are training teachers are not informed. They lack capacity to interpret designs of CBC. So how can a blind man lead another blind man? Truly, our teachers are incapable and unable to teach CBC. They are incapable and unable. And therefore, there is no CBC in the classrooms in Kenya.
We have done all that was required. We trained teachers in April. We are going to train another set in August, and we shall train another set in December.
Training and orientation and professional development is always a continuous process. You'll never do it once and say it is done. The idea of continuous professional development will always be there. So the question of saying they were not trained enough, without being rude, I would ask, in what? Because we're just giving them an orientation. But I think this is a narrative that has been pushed by a specific group to achieve a specific agenda.
According to experts, the government needed time to prepare for the new curriculum.
There are many salient issues which were never considered. So even using analogies such as the train has left the station. It left the station, it never took the passengers. It left the station, it didn't have fuel. It left the station, but the railway has not been constructed to the end. We know that inequality is a serious challenge in our education in Kenya. Children in rural areas, children living with a disability, gender issues, geographical challenges. These are realities, language of instruction. These are shades of inequalities that CBC in itself cannot deliver.
A recent survey by the Early Grade Mathematics Assessment Endline Study revealed that about 40% of schools were found to have no basic structures, such as desks and chairs. Furthermore, the National Assessment System Monitoring Study conducted for Standard 3 indicated that at least 31% of schools do not have laptops.
The infrastructure of our schools cannot absorb CBC. In fact, CBC, many regions of this country will be marginalized, and public schools will remain permanently marginalized. The only thing that they can wait for is to die. And it will give leverage to private schools in terms of infrastructure. To deliver CBC effectively, like we see in Finland and Singapore, at that level, you would require about 3 teachers in every classroom, in every learning lesson, because you must assess every learner at the end of the lesson. And so the class sizes do not exceed 25. They do not exceed 25 with 3 teachers. So you can imagine we have to subdivide all our classrooms in our public schools, create more space, and get more teachers. We've got to invest very heavily in infrastructure so that the table designs are different from the desk design. Parliament needed to debate this and prepare the country in terms of appropriating money to prepare the human resource and appropriating money to prepare the infrastructure. That was not done. And so you could not move beyond this stage 3 to designs, to syllabus, to piloting and rollout. That should not be done if you can't do stage number 3. Was this done in this country? Definitely it was not. So how was the curriculum designed informed?
Those challenges will always be there. But what matters is how are they being addressed? If you talk of like a shortage of teachers, which has always been there, how is it being addressed? It is not something that is coming up because CBC has come into existence. It's just now the teachers are expected to be more engaged with the learner. Incidentally, the way we have designed the teaching and learning process is such that even if you are sitting on a floor, you will learn. We don't want, infrastructure is very critical in a school. But do you want that to hold us from rolling out a 21st century curriculum? What you do, and that's exactly what we have done, when we are doing orientation to the teachers, we tell them to use local material.
I've been to many parts of the country and I'm satisfied without prejudice. Whether you are sitting in a dilapidated structure, but the teacher is there and the equipment for teaching is there, the CBC is taking root. The infrastructure that was another problem, we are addressing it. This year we have another 300 million to apply to our primary schools. And we are going to apply it where it is needed most.
Huu mradi ni mbaya zaidi kuliko ile ya laptop ambayo iligharimu 70 billion na zile vifaa zimepelekwa kwa shule ni 1 million tablets, hata sio laptops, na nusu zimekufa, walimu hawajui kuitumia. Na hata hii CBC inafaa kuwa digitally driven. Report ile tumepewa kwa ministry na wale expert, hii ni report za serikali, ni kwamba laptop iko katika 5% success. 5% success. Kama imefaili kwa 5%, je, na hii CBC is supposed to ride on digital literacy program. Sasa hiyo ni kumaanisha nini?
Preliminary results of an assessment of grade 3 pupils provides a reality check for the drivers of the competency-based curriculum that is being rolled out in schools. The findings indicate that half of the pupils do not attain the 50% benchmark in English, Kiswahili and mathematics, and that a majority have weak comprehension skills. The survey raises serious questions as to whether the country is really prepared for the new curriculum.
It failed in South Africa because teachers were unable to deliver teaching of CBC, and they were honest enough to boycott and stop teaching CBC. But we've seen Kenyan teachers trying to raise their concerns. The only thing they are met with is interdictions and forced teaching.
I think the biggest challenge that we have now is that attitude change, because of some of these dissenting voices that try to give certain impressions. Like now when somebody says this has failed in South Africa, failed in UK, failed in the USA, of course it has not failed in those countries. But because they are saying it because they want people to get swayed. Rwanda rolled out CBC 2 years ago. They have had their challenges, but they're moving on because they know that is the right thing to do. South Sudan rolled out ahead of us. Uganda is rolling out in phases. Tanzania has rolled out. So, I don't know, maybe, I think I just don't understand. We carried ourselves, invited by NAT. They invited all the executives from across the country. We went to their boardroom. We spent the whole morning discussing issues of CBC. We made presentations. And what did they say? They said, this is perfect. You guys have found the right thing. We support you. We have many agencies in this country who are key stakeholders in education. Do you want to tell me that of all these key stakeholders, NAT is a better stakeholder than the others? I mean, let's just face reality. If they find that there's something we are supposed to do better, like now they were talking about teacher training, why did they go to kick teachers out of training sessions? What exactly was the issue?
Grade 4 will be rolled out in 2020, but the roadmap will be ready by September this year.
One thing we may not have done well is having a strong communication strategy that would have helped us carry Kenyans along, explain to them. And that is why we are coming up with a new strategy of communication.
To address the underlying issues, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has formed a task force to undertake critical analysis of the national rollout and advice on key implementation issues.
How would you form a task force that excludes unions? And look at the members of the task force. They have been very loud proponents of CBC who have been put on the task force. So what we expect is a rubber stamp process. We don't think that task force is any task force that will deliver any meaningful work. They will be told what to approve and what to do.
The state is yet to decide whether the 11 years of schooling or grade 9 under the new 2633 system will be part of primary or secondary education. Currently, primary school ends in the 10th year of school or class 8 under the 844 curriculum that was introduced in 1984 and is gradually being phased out.
We are now beginning to get sober. If you thought that implementing CBC in early years, pre-primary 1, pre-primary 2, grade 1, 2, and 3 was challenging as it is right now. Wait for another 3 years when we walk into grade 6, and now these children have to graduate to go into junior secondary school.
Right now, they're not sure where to domicile grade 7, 8, and 9. It is a difficult agenda. And that tells you that the curriculum framework model is poor.
The task force has up to June 2020 to determine at what point learners join secondary schools.
We are not opposed to any curriculum, but can we follow the correct steps? We cannot do it in a day. For Kenya to deliver CBC, the earliest it can successfully is 2025.
You see, there is nowhere where there are no challenges. As a Starehe Eagle, I was trained to have my cup half full and to get water to fill it. That is precisely what I'm doing. You people are doing a good job by asking pertinent questions, but you should also allow us to do the job that we are supposed to do.
What I want people to focus on is the child. Go and see the child. Is the child happy at that level? If the child is happy, that is what is important. Because at that level, learning is supposed to be exciting to the child.
As the debate of whether the country is adequately prepared to handle the new curriculum continues, the challenge will be on how the government will marshal resources, especially to schools in rural areas who are mostly disadvantaged in many ways.